Well, we was down at Cricket Lodge, place where we all gathered, and we was all sitting around drinking on a beer, and it was kind of a every weekend thing. We would all go and gather around and drink and talk and carry on. And I was tired and I was going home, so I told my buddy to get in a truck and let's go. And what I did was took him home and then started dozing off. And I remember running off the road twice before I got to the point where I run off and wrecked.
When I got to the wreck site, they were putting Mark in an ambulance, and I only saw a trickle of blood coming out of his mouth. And I thought, well, he's fine. They had a neck brace on, had him on a board, putting him in the back of the ambulance, and he was very coherent, and he kissed me and told me that he loved me and that he was going to be all right. And I got in the ambulance with him, and then they started asking him questions, and he couldn't feel his legs. And then his pressure started dropping, and his chest started swelling, and I knew then that he was hurt very bad.
You can't go to the gathering places and find anybody anymore. They're not there. They quit hanging out, quit drinking, most of them. If they do drink, I guess they stay at home. You don't see them out drinking and driving anymore. And I think it took me becoming paralyzed and put in a wheelchair to make my friends around here realize.
Couple of beers out on a Monday night. We probably had four, 5, or 6.
There certainly appears to have been good news in the drunk driving area, that there are fewer people with high BACs on the road and fewer alcohol-related fatalities.
I know what my limit is. My limit is 2 beers. After 2 beers, if I have 3 beers or whatever, I start to lose control.
We do know now more than we did before, say 10 years ago, that the act of driving and drinking is a totally dangerous, abominable, unacceptable act.
There's plenty of drunk driving left. We have a lot yet to do. But I think there have been changes in the way in which we look at it. There may be 2 phenomena we're talking about. One, I think, is a general change in the way we regard drinking and alcohol. You might speak in terms of increased health consciousness. We're less enamored with drinking. We're more aware of the dangers. And this has shown up in terms of decreased alcohol concentration in general.
The public, in part, became much more responsible about how it used alcohol in relation to driving. This was created, we believe, in large part by citizens activist groups like MAD, RID, students groups like SAD. These same groups also prompted a lot of new legislation through the 1980s. And there's been more enforcement of the laws aimed at this problem.
The recognition of the dangers of alcohol is a significant change for the society, and not just in the drunk driving area.
It really is difficult to assess drunkenness. Where does sobriety stop and drunkenness start? You really have to have some objective measures.
All right, we're going to take a BAC reading now. Remember, you come up.
One thing that is very objective is the BAC.
Take a deep breath, blow as hard as you can into the fat end of this mouthpiece. Okay?
Blood alcohol content is nothing more than a concentration of alcohol in the blood.
0, no alcohol.
That is the measurement of alcohol divided by the volume of blood that the alcohol is in. That is a very objective measure of how much alcohol that a person's consumed and their rate of metabolism and so forth.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I can drive a clutch.
Oh, that's what you had? That white thing? Your white car? Your car?
My car? No, my car was not automatic, but my mom's car. When I...
One of the first impairments that you see as the blood alcohol level starts to climb is impaired judgment. And judgment is a very difficult thing to measure because it's a bit subjective. But it is apparent that at relatively low blood alcohol levels, or after maybe just 1 or 2 drinks, that people will start to have a little bit of judgment impairment.
That made me sick.
0.025.
As you increase the dose of alcohol and have more of an alcohol effect on the brain, then you start to see problems with coordination.
Okay, 0.080.
2021, 2022, 2023. I can't do it. This is harder.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, X, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Alcohol consumption can really affect driving in fairly dramatic ways. Driving requires an awful lot of skills that people never think about. They just do automatically. Judgment, of course, is very important in deciding when you pull out into traffic, how quickly you should stop when you see a traffic light change, and so on and so forth. And of course, coordination is really key in being able to drive a car and being able to negotiate a car in traffic. So both judgment and coordination are really key to driving, and both of those are significantly impaired by alcohol.
The basic approach to this problem in the United States and around the world is by the law. Basically, we pass laws that prohibit the behavior. The first laws prohibited drunken driving, although drunken driving was never carefully defined, so there were big arguments as to whether someone was or wasn't drunk. Today, we define the behavior as driving with a blood alcohol concentration above some certain threshold. It makes it much more objective, much easier to define the offense and prosecute the offenders. It's often been presumed in the United States that other countries have solved this problem. They haven't. Many other countries have done a better job of controlling the problem than we have. There's one ingredient that is common in the enforcement of these laws in other countries that we unfortunately cannot do in the United States. That is random roadside breath testing.
Mate, how are you? Good. You had a breath test before?
Once.
One long continuous breath into the machine till I tell you to stop. Thanks. Thank you. No worries, mate. Have a good night. Okay, you too. Good night.
The purpose of random breath testing is not just to catch drivers drinking and driving. The purpose is to prevent people from drinking and driving. Hence, the bus with the .05, we make it as obvious as it possibly can be to the driving public. We're not just selling the message to the people who we test, we're also selling the message to the people that drive by. During the course of 1991, we would have tested 1 in every 2.5 licensed drivers. The bus probably would have been exposed to anything up to 4 or 5 million people through the course of that 12 months. We hope we don't catch anybody. We hope we don't because they're not there. But if they are there, we will catch them. People know that, they're understanding that, and they're changing their behaviour accordingly.
The kind of random roadside breath testing that's used in Australia would not be permitted in the US because of the Fourth Amendment to our Constitution. But we can use passive alcohol sensors instead because they don't require the motorist to blow into them.
Passive alcohol sensors are devices that can detect the presence of alcohol in the air without asking a driver to do anything particularly to help the officer. These devices can be built into the standard policeman's flashlight, for example. They draw in a sample of air and analyze that air for the presence of alcohol.
How you doing? You got anything to drink tonight? Okay. Count to 20 for me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Okay. You're telling me you haven't had anything at all to drink?
Well, earlier, but it was...
What time earlier?
3 o'clock in the day.
10-8-9-5, one magistrate court, one summons.
We know from research around the world and from research in the United States that to really have an impact on this problem, we have to have very visible and well-publicized enforcement of the laws. And that seems to occur when we have sobriety checkpoints with a lot of visibility, a big police presence, so the potential offenders understand and believe that there's a real chance they'll be caught if they go out and commit the offense.
Ma'am, we're bringing a sobriety checkpoint out here tonight. May I see your driver's license and your insurance card, please?
All right. How you doing? Anything to drink tonight?
Get a thing? Yes, sir. I watch it.
No. Keep your eyes on it. Jeffrey, we've got one problem.
Yes, sir.
Turn around, put your hand on the truck.
Oh,
Place you under arrest for driving under the influence. What we're going to do is we're going to go down and take a breathalyzer test.
The important factor is not that the penalty be extremely severe. The important factor is that people believe that they have a high chance of getting caught if they're engaging in alcohol-impaired driving, and that they experience a penalty very quickly after they're caught.
So what specific policies have worked in the last decade? Sobriety checkpoints, that works. Administrative license revocation by increasing the swiftness of punishment appears to be effective.
Administrative license revocation is a very important tool. In fact, it's one of MADD's priorities. There's a national coalition set up to pass administrative license revocation laws in every state. This gives the police the opportunity to actually take the driver's license at the scene, get the drunk driver off the road. And this is very critical, that the punishment is swift and it's certain.
Minimum drinking age, does it have an impact on fatalities? Clearly so.
The legal drinking age is one area that we've had considerable success with in the 1980s. The age is now 21 in all states, had been 18 in many states in the 1970s, and the research has conclusively shown that the effects of increasing the age from 18 back up to 21 has significantly reduced the amount of alcohol consumed by young people, reducing drinking rates by about 15%, and similarly reducing the rate of single vehicle nighttime crashes, those that are likely to involve alcohol, also by about 15%. In many areas, we know that young people can easily still purchase alcohol despite the fact that they're under the legal age. Effective enforcement that's focused not just on the young people that are purchasing it, but that is also focused on the outlets that are providing the alcohol to young people through license suspension and so forth, can be very effective in reducing the availability of alcohol to young people.
We're wrong to look for silver bullets. You know, we're not going to find a policy that is going to wipe out drunk driving. But there's certainly a lot around, much of which we're using, that is effective.
The public definitely supports continued action on drunk driving. We get the phone calls into our offices, the victim stories are still coming in.
We're always going to have drunk driving in a society that drinks a lot and that drives a lot. But we can have less of it, and we can have fewer deaths and fewer injuries.
So we didn't think we was doing anything wrong. We would just sip on beers. Typical teenagers. It never really, hit us that, hey, you're gonna have a wreck because you're drinking and you're driving a truck or a car. But you can drink and be a casual drinker and one time mess up. And you're messed up for life. It don't take but once.